Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about something that is really important to me and has really changed my life, and that is Jenkum.
There's a new way for your kids to get high. They're using raw sewage.
I couldn't imagine doing something like that. Sounds pretty sick to me.
Honestly, they need to find something better to do with their life. Seriously.
Something new, something stimulating, something different.
There's a lot of people that say it's a hoax or it's not real or it's just made up or whatever. Now let's just get this out of the way first, so you can laugh it all off or whatever, You won't be laughing once you experience what I have and have your life change. But, it's human waste. It's, shit.
Welcome to the Jenkum podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Josh Denny. A lot of times on the show, we get people together and we talk about what other random shit is going on in the world or going on in our lives or going on with you guys at home. But occasionally, we get an episode together where we get to talk about some good shit, some shit that does good in the world. And I'm kind of excited for this one. I've been looking forward to this for a couple weeks now. But ladies and gentlemen, my guest this week, the one and only, you may know him from the band Snot, one of the legendary hardcore bands of the late 90s, was a guitar player in Head Planet Earth in the early 2000s, as well as Seven Dust, played for Ugly Kid Joe, many other bands, and is now doing great work with the charity here in Los Angeles, Rock to Recovery, or I should say nonprofit group. I don't know if you consider it a charity, but we'll get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Sonny Mayo. Hey, man.
What's up, dude?
What's up, man?
There it is. There it is.
Yeah, I tried to roll out the red carpet on the intro. Yeah, you like the little. That's my logo.
I was watching somebody on there. Was somebody who was on one of your reels was like, "Why is there a black cock with poop on it or something?"
Yeah, that was Brandon Strock from Walkaway, who is funny, an openly gay conservative. But I was like, of course you would think it was a penis with poop on it, Brandon. That's your world.
Am I gonna get canceled because I'm on your show?
No. Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I think you'll be fine. I feel like I was telling you this. I feel like I get canceled every week over something silly. Like I had it was so strange. So there was on Instagram the other day, I shared this, I don't know what they call it when they have like a post and it's got like a bunch of slides and it's sort of like, it's almost like a PowerPoint on Instagram. And this gay dude was like, here's why I don't celebrate Pride. And he had all these things about like what he doesn't like about Pride, that it's exploitative of gay culture and it's become corporatized or whatever. It had all these other things. And it was amazing how many people were, I just shared, I was like, oh, this is interesting. I've never heard somebody, speak about it like this. And it was amazing how many of my gay friends jumped in the comments and was like, yo, fuck this guy. And I was like, dude, he just has a different opinion about Pride than you. It's amazing how people have such a sort of like a complete intolerance for people thinking differently than them.
Yeah, man. And it's so sad because it's people who really, if you want to, my humble opinion is it's a cultural trauma response. Dude, we are a dysfunctional family culturally.
Yeah,
especially,
I think that's a great way to put
potentially human, but especially Western countries, whatever, that have full on internet and have like too much access to every single thing that any Joe Schmo or whoever thinks. And they just type something and then it's like, oh, how dare you? And then they engage, It's like Ricky Gervais says, it's like having access to the biggest bathroom wall in the world, like just where people write just shit on it. And he's like, I can go write some shit on it too and then walk away, or I can read some shit, right? But it's, oh my God, it's so, yeah, this. And so, yeah, man. So again, like, thanks for having me on, first of all. And
yeah, for sure.
Especially wanting to plug Rock to Recovery, which is my nonprofit organization that I work with. And so thankfully I get to, in some way, try to contribute to the kindness and the love and the actual connection that really is important. It's the thing for all of us, man, that makes everything, that makes everything tangibly real between people.
Well, the one thing that I'll ask you this question too, because I think you have some perspective on it. Being in music for so long, we had a conversation on the show with my buddy Chris Rabb like a year or two ago, and I said, I actually think one of the reasons that you said we have this sort of real cultural crisis. We're a dysfunctional family here in the West, and I said one of the things I think contributes to that is like there really is not the same sort of like counterculture rock and roll that there was every other decade, right? So if you think about it, like, when you were playing in the 90s, the 2000s, even the 2010s, like rock was kind of always counterculture, right? You had punk rock and metal and hardcore, and it was at least sort of a subculture where people were like, oh, well, if I don't like pop music, there's this other thing for me. And I feel like this is really the first decade where, like, if you want to enjoy something that's not pop or mainstream, it's really underground. You know what I mean? And it's almost like without having that other slice of culture, I think that also contributes to how dug in people get into the idea of like, no, there's only one right way. So it's like there's only one right way to be a band. There's only one right way to be a musician. And you came up in a time where you were always like, no, we're going to do it differently, and always sort of more on the cutting edge of music and the way it was sort of shifting in that 90s to 2000s period. I mean, what do you think about that? Do you feel like the lack of rock and roll in mainstream culture has an effect on the culture?
First of all, I like this. This is a great point in the conversation, and the thing being like, if you like if there is a counterculture, then you are absolutely judged and condemned, rather than just being like, well, they like Satan or something like that. Let's stay away. They're evil. They go back and I mean, they literally hang you in the square like a witch, or they burn you at the stake now.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is, it's like the people, and I say this with compassion in my heart, man. I'm trying not to condemn anybody myself, because it's actually terribly tragic what we're doing to one another, we as humans, especially in I'll just say Western United States, is the people who have felt and have been sort of subjugated or whatever, they are turning into the monster that they have hated. Dave Chappelle said it over when David was doing those like videos from home, and he did 8 minutes 46 seconds, and then he did that one where he talked about the he was asking he was asking people to boycott him because he didn't have the rights to Chappelle's show, and he saw that it was on Netflix, and he called up you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. And he was like,
up,
they didn't basically they didn't give him a piece of that streaming deal.
Zero. Yeah, that means
nothing.
he was getting nothing. So he went to the head of Netflix and said, "Hey, can you take this down? It makes me feel bad." And he's not supposed to do that, right? And this. And so he was like, and they said yes. And so he went on record like calling out Viacom and all these, everything, Comedy Central and all, CBS, Paramount, all the things. And he was like, it's the same monster that those Me Too bitches were talking about. I don't like the way it fucks, and I don't like the way it eats.
Oh yeah, it was such a great line, wasn't it? Yeah.
And so, and he was talking about the grift. He was talking about being grifted, like the 3-card Monty, and he tied it in, and how everybody was in on it. Like that's how you get fooled and sucked into thinking you could win it. Yeah, everybody's like, yeah, and they're all in on it. And he told a story about when he was 19, and then he talks fast forward to when he's at Comedy Central, and his lawyer and manager are there, and their lawyers and are there, and everyone in the room is going, yeah, Dave, I've been in that room, Josh. It was with
me
Snot.
too, with the Food Network, but please,
right. So I was there with Snot, and it was our lawyer was like, yeah, we've done a bunch of deals together. And I'm like, I mean, I was so naive. I just wanted to get in the van and jam. Me and Mikey Doling from the other guitarists and Snot, we were just like, yeah, we just want to jam. We sold ourselves short, man. And so we were told, yeah, this is a great deal. And then look back, and it's like in perpetuity throughout the known universe.
Yeah.
Or like any other planet that's ever discovered, you might, if another parallel dimension is discovered, we still own your ass in that parallel dimension.
Yeah.
So Chappelle
and at the time, And at the time, being a young guy, like I don't know, where you were probably in your 20s at
Mid
that time.
20s. Yeah,
Yeah,
25.
you don't have the vision at that time unless you're like, this is what I always say is a problem in my career, is that I don't have that sense of delusional entitlement of like, no, everything I do is going to be great throughout the annals of history. But like, you as young guys probably had no idea that Snot album was going to go on to be one of the most influential records for the next 20 years, and that there would be so much revenue tied to it and so much opportunity.
Yeah, man. And our managers didn't either. We had guys who were, that like our manager Nick Adler, wonderful human, great human. Dad Lou Adler produced Mamas and the Papas and
Oh
all that,
yeah, yeah.
right? And he just didn't have like the wherewithal. Like there's a bunch of stuff, bunch of revenue we never got because we never registered stuff. And but so it's that business, right? So back to the point of like the monster that everyone's like now going, "Rah!" We
Yeah.
hate it. They're doing what that monster did. And again, this is why I say it's a trauma response. It's a societal trauma response. And it's really sad, man. You know?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, there is so many of those situations where people are like they sort of become the monster that they set out to slay. And you see it a lot in modern stuff where they're like, "Oh, we want to give," even like you look at streaming sites like, "Oh, like Tidal and Spotify, like we want to give all the money, we want the artist to own their music and get their money back." And then like, but we take a pimp's percentage of that as well. And it's like, yeah, we want you to own it, but still only 60%. And it's just like, it's almost like it's like leaving one pimp for the other pimp. Like he
Mhm.
only hits me 2 times a week,
Right.
And so it's like, it really, and I think all of us who are artistic or creative or have that in our blood, it's like, we really just want to be able to like cleanly, simply make money off of doing the things that we love. And beyond that, I think most artists I talk to, like, they don't have this ultimate capitalistic view of becoming uber rich. They're like, I would just love to live comfortably, but have total freedom in doing my thing.
Yeah, there are the anomalies like Gene Simmons is like
Yeah.
every single anything that even resembles any image of Kiss, he's gonna find it and take his money, get from it. And you know who else too is Brett Michaels, actually from day one. That dude was on top of it. I just saw like something recently where it just came across Instagram Reels or whatever, and he was on his game. He was wise to it, and
Yeah.
and just every rose has its thorn. Every penny is going into his account, right? And so to kind of bring it to reel it back into like where I've moved into the mental health service industry, if you will. I get to use music now as a means of transformation, a catalyst for transformation and recovery with Rock to Recovery. Doing our work that we do with drug and alcohol treatment centers, mental health facilities. We work directly with the Air Force Wounded Warriors.
Yeah, veterans. That was
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really cool because I've known you and Wes sort of for like since early 2000s. I knew Wes more in a time, way back when. But to watch your guys' journey, through sobriety and then creating Rock to Recovery as a way to help people use music to kind of give them that hope and that sense of life outside of addiction. But it's been so cool to see it grow beyond that
Mm.
to helping veterans and people that are dealing with mental health issues. And it really is like, you hear people talk about, oh well, music and laughter are the best medicines, but I feel like we finally now, with like organizations like Rock to Recovery, have clinics, you know what I mean, where that medicine can be administered and
Mm.
taught, and it just seems like such an awesome thing.
Yeah, we literally say music is the medicine, yeah. And so, thanks for pointing that out. And you're right. We had it's like it took what it took, the time that it took. And there's evidence now. There's actually evidence-based research that's been shown how it affects people, what it does, and then the long term, like as they go forward, continuing to use creativity, finding that spark of confidence by actually writing an original song, writing lyrics about your loss of your life with drugs and alcohol, or like watching a friend OD, or Like I work with with veterans, man. I was just in Colorado Springs with one of my colleagues, Clinton, and working with people who just wanted a job and an education and couldn't afford it, so joined the Air Force, and then
Yeah.
they lost their legs, right? Or they went to. I got a friend who's a former Marine, Purple Heart, which means he was injured in combat,
Mhm.
and so and this guy was like, he just he wanted an education for his, and like he went through this thing where he went to Fallujah and he was like in the midst of it, dude. He was clearing rooms. I mean, this guy's
Yeah.
like a superhero, man. He's like 6.5 feet tall, and he's just a specimen of a human. And while he was away, his daughter, 5 years old, died. And
Oh
so he
man.
couldn't go home. He couldn't, like, and just so trauma and all this. And so we get to write music with these people and then be told. I mean, I get to be told later how I inspired it. And it's like, I hold a space and I offer. It's like, if you build it, they will come. If I bring the
Yeah.
instruments, and I have the experience of being in recovery and being a musician and all that stuff, and a songwriter, producer, blah blah blah. And then there's the intangibles, man, where we actually create something together, and I'm helping them. It's not like I'm going to play music for people, or we go in and, hey, let's all sing Kumbaya together. No, we're gonna
Right.
write our own version of fucking Kumbaya or whatever we write. And man, there's some heavy, beautiful stuff we write. Sometimes super fun. Like we wrote I did a session this morning at a treatment center. Wrote a pop punk song, that was just literally it was literally C G D
Yeah.
A. And then the chorus was F F F C C C G G G, right?
Yeah.
And everyone was just so stoked, and like these people were coming off fentanyl and were had been Narcan twice, in the last year and a half, and they're like, I really want to try this time. And I'm all, cool, let's write a fucking song about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
man.
mean, and it's like one of the things that it's just kind of weird, like, not to make it about, spirit or religion or anything like that, but it's like, it's so strange. I was telling you about the story about my mom and everything, and I go like, isn't it wild that like I met these guys 20 years ago, and in music, and just like I was a young guy in bands who was going to see my favorite bands, and I had met the guys from Head P because a girl I hung out with them and met them at another show. And then I was like, isn't it wild that like 20 years later, we're all living in the same city, and my mom is now working in recovery and has this like thing of like, I really want to change the way that people stay sober after they get out of treatment. And it involves a real full 360 immersive plan for your life. And so much of it is about like people having that thing that makes them feel loved and inspired and have hope. And then it's like you see what you guys are doing at the same time, and it's this weird sort of serendipitous thing of like, it does feel like we are all a big family kind of moving in the same direction. And
Mm.
and it just really makes me happy to see that there is a lot more attention being paid to like, okay, well, we can send people to treatment and give them medication and help them kick their initial addiction, but like, how do we give them hope? Because rebuilding your life after that point is the hardest part.
Yeah, man. And that rebuilding, that thing you're talking about, or giving people hope, on the physiological level, on a scientific level, playing music. So for those who don't know, and if I haven't been clear about it, what I do, or what we do as group facilitators with Rock to Recovery, is we go into these treatment centers. Really, we just grow into these groups, whatever group it is, if it's mental health or substance use disorder, or I've worked with kids in different realms. We work with Air Force Wounded Warriors. We go into a group, and whoever's there, we start a band and we write a song. No musical experience is required. It's not for musicians. It's for people.
Yeah.
That are whatever, people, anybody. We could do corporate gigs, whatever. It's for people. It has a specific way of affecting people, especially in treatment or in PTSD or in some type of recovery. In that, when you learn, whether it's literally 4 chords on a piano, 2 finger, ding, and you keep doing that, and I write it on the keys, and I have a drum machine, a drummer that lives in my keyboard that plays whatever I want him to play.
Yeah, where were those when I was a 17-year-old dude who couldn't find drummers, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
they existed, but there was like this thing of like, no, you need a real drummer. You can't just use a drum machine.
yeah. Well, now we don't bring drum kits in there because it just would be a cacophony of noise. So we have a,
Apparently, yeah.
you know, the drummer keeps us in time, but we literally teach people. We write something with people, and maybe somebody actually is a guitarist or was a singer or used to play piano, and they stop because they've had a needle in their arm for 8 years and can't stop slamming dope. Right.
Yeah.
So we give them this opportunity. But when we play music and sing together, especially, something happens physiologically. The brain engages both sides, literally fireworks, right? And when we listen to music, it engages one side of the brain. Dopamine's released, beautiful things like serotonin feel really good. And when we play music, oxytocin kicks in. Now, oxytocin, as you may know, some people may know, is what's called the love molecule, the cuddle chemical, the hug drug. And when we play music, oxytocin is released. That's why, like, you experience it being in bands, and you can see it when you jam with people and you just get in that place where you're almost like, it feels unconscious, but it's like more conscious, like super conscious in the moment, man. Right. And
Well,
so
it's that way. It's even that way with comedy. Like one of the
yes.
things, like I'll occasionally get like young comedians or starting comedians who ask me, like, what tips do you have? And it's always like, it's simple stuff like do it as much as you can. But one of the things that I think I learned playing music that a lot of comedians don't do is I never look down or away from the audience. And
Mm,
part of that is like, dude, all of the love of doing comedy, like if you look down and you're not looking at those people and connecting with those people, you're missing 90% of what's amazing about it, because there is like this psychic link. And I've tried to explain this to people who don't write this way, but like a lot of times when I have a bit, I just take a premise on stage, and it's really that energy that I get from the audience of watching how they interact with my words and everything that fuels what comes back to me. And in a way, like that's where the best magic happens. And if it's like a one-way presentation where I'm just, doing material and they're just listening, we're really, neither of us are getting the full thing out of it. And that was one of the things I always thought was cool about you as a player live, was that you were always interacting with the audience, whether it be like, making goofy faces or pointing at people specifically or whatever. But there is a thing where you can see that there are musicians who are playing for themselves and musicians who are playing to really make that connection with people. And so it's cool that, that is such a big, that there is actually like science to it, and a chemical thing that connects people with things like music or comedy or whatever.
yeah, and it actually, like, playing music actually forms new neural pathways, literally forges new pathways for the brain. I love that you pointed that out too, because I've always been like that, man. It's like especially after I got sober, dude, I would take a time every night, no matter what band I was in or what stage I was on, where I would almost step not quite off stage, but I would step to the side a little bit and take in my band members and just watch them and just like, and then look down. And Bruce Lee had this thing that we said, when once I know it, or once it's in me, I don't throw the punch, or like, it's not me playing the guitar, it's playing itself, if you will. And so
Yeah.
I would watch myself play as like from this observational point, and then I would look in the crowd and I would just like look around at people, and they'd see me and they'd be like, they kind of be like, whoa, but also I pulled funny faces, all the, but all the
Yeah.
but I would take this time to just, and I wasn't like staring at them
Yeah.
necessarily, I kind of overdid it. I dramatized
Like
it a little.
creepy. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
whoa, dude. But I'd
Yeah.
look at him and I'd be like, and take a time, and they'd just be like, wow, dude, this guy's really fucking right here, man.
Into it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Present is the right word. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Just
Present.
really present. And that was one of the things, like, just the limited interactions I had with the band back then. And like I joked with you when we were setting this up. I said we bumped into each other many times over the past like 20 years, and you always would be like, don't I know you from somewhere? And yeah. And like you were walking your dogs one time at Promenade, and you were just like, where do I know you from? And I was like, it's a long story, and I'm at work right now. This is back when I was working for Crocs. But yeah, but it's one of those things of like,
I was
no,
not in the Croc store. I was not in the Croc
no,
store.
he wasn't. Let's make sure we clarify. Sonny Mayo was not anywhere near the Croc store. We were at the other end of the Promenade. No, we were interviewing people, and but you're a dude that's like, it's, if you know you, it's impossible not to spot you places. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you'll just be like, oh, there's Sonny,
Hey, there he is.
and it's like you, Chuck Liddell. Like there's like a handful of guys around LA that you
Me and
like
Chuck.
if you see them from a distance, you're like, I know that walk and that head, you know what I mean? I'm one of those guys too. Like I stick out like like a swollen sore thumb. So
Man, this thing's sore and
yeah.
swollen. Look at it.
That's me.
Beard.
Throw a ball cap on it. It's got a red beard.
Thing's got a weird beard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
so speaking of where I'll be at the Fondo on July 9th for a
Yeah,
rock
I
recovery
have it pulled
show.
up here. I was gonna pull
Yeah.
this up. I definitely want people to see this. Let me
Yeah,
see.
so every year we, especially, well, I mean, sorry, with the exception of the COVID years, we
Yeah, here we
have
go.
a live event. And that is my friend Shavo Odagian, who, funny enough, this dude is a huge supporter of Rock to Recovery, and he owns a weed dispensary and like a weed company called Red 22.
Oh, okay.
And he supports fucking Rock to Recovery. He actually had some issues, and I think it was pretty public with pills, I think, of some sort. And he recovered from it, and and he uses weed medicinally, and he takes his medicine every single day. But he's a huge supporter of Rock to Recovery. Like, we have so much love from the community of musicians that we've all known, and now this year we're actually honoring a comedian, Jay Moore.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and we're honoring another guy who's been in multiple comedies, actor Keith David. You know,
yeah, I know Keith.
yeah, he was in some funny shit, man. So There's Something About Mary. He was the stepdad. And he was in what's that show? Greenleaf on Netflix. He's the pastor.
Oh, I haven't watched that. I haven't seen that.
But he's also for me, being a guy who, grew up in the I was born in the 70s. So he was in Platoon and They Live and
oh yeah, They Live is probably the thing I know him from the most, because like, I'm an 80s kid, but it was a very Roddy Piper in a movie. It was like mind blowing. Like, oh, dude, he's acting.
Yeah, longest fight scene in the history of fight scenes. They fight in the alley, and it's just like 10 minutes of them just beating the shit out of each other. So yeah, every year we do this show, and we have live music. The Rock to Recovery guys, including myself and Wes and a few of the other guys, do cover songs. Keith is also a jazz singer, so he's going to perform.
I had no idea about.
Bro, Nat King Cole, like, disciple.
Yeah.
Like literally fell from the Nat King Cole tree. But we've had people like Katie Seagal from Sons of Anarchy and Married with Children. And she did a set she's a killer blues singer. Did you know that about her?
I had no idea.
Dude,
I knew she was into music because I think I saw like an interview when Sons was on and it was in its heyday where she talked about playing music, but I didn't know what.
She's a great singer, man. It was like Fleetwood Mac, but bluesier when she performed. And we had John Feldman from Goldfinger, and we had Tommy Vext of Bad Wolves. We have Moby. We had
Corey. You guys honored Corey Taylor at the last one, right?
Corey was actually like the second one, dude.
Oh, that was okay.
Yeah, that was. I mean, it was 2017, and we haven't done it for 2 years. So
yeah,
we're on. This is the fifth one. But we had Corey Taylor and Wayne Kramer. Wayne Kramer was from MC5, which was Kick Out the Jams.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Mike Ness too.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, we've had some rad people, and so yeah, it's open to anybody and everybody. And like you and I were talking about, like with kind of an overly used word, ally, but like people who support not just addiction and alcoholism, but PTSD and people who aren't alcoholics who are supportive of these things, man, because everybody these days has some kind of contact with someone who's struggling, be it with mental health or with substance use disorders.
Yeah, and I'm very much like I've always had, and I shared this story with you a little bit with like my older brother. One of the few things we bonded on when I was a teenager and he had come home, he was 6 years older than me, and he came home and lived with us for a while when I was in Minnesota, and I had just started playing in like punk bands and stuff, and he had played around with guitar for a long time. And what always pissed me off was he was like instantaneously more prolific at it than I was. Like I was doing like, I would literally sit and play Master of Puppets for like hours to just like get my dexterity up and everything and like become a good player. I ended up becoming one of the better players in my high school, but I had to really, really work at it. And my older brother he just like picked up a Jackson guitar, probably in a pot deal, and just started playing and was like instantaneously at my level or better. And but same thing, like got really into the blue collar grind of his life and struggled with alcoholism the entire, his whole way. Got into a lot of different motorcycle accidents. He was a real gearhead and that was his passion. But I just sit and think like, man, if there was something like this for him when he got out of treatment that he could go to as a guy, like you mentioned, who like dabbled in music and really had like a natural gift for it, if there was a place for that to be nurtured and if there was a place for him to really kind of get to explore that side of himself in a way that he never did before, who knows? He might still be here today. So people always ask me like, oh, you're like this sort of like foul-mouthed, edgy comedian. You just don't care about people. And it's like, no, I care about people, but it has to be purposeful for me to want to get behind something. And I really see that with like Rock to Recovery of like, no, it's a real tangible thing. Like, there's a lot of everyone has a nonprofit in LA and everyone has a thing in Hollywood that they get behind. And you get into these things and you find out like, oh, the person who runs it has like 6 mansions. And, I won't name names of organizations, but we can probably throw a couple out. Right. And so when you see that it's like a thing that people really get behind, there's real tangible results from it. Like I encourage people to go to the website and look at some of the testimonial videos of people that you've worked with. And you see that it's like, it's not just bullshit and it's not just something fun. I mean, I'm sure it's fun for you guys as touring musicians who are now in this chapter of life to be able to like participate in this with people, but it really works. It's a real thing that has real life effect on people's lives. And so, as I told you, like, these are the kind of things that I get excited about. And also like, as a guy who his music days have long left him behind, the idea that you can inject that into new people and it can have such a positive, it can be such a part of a positive shift in people's lives who maybe feel like, well, now that I'm sober and I don't have my drug friends and I don't have my drug community, I don't have this stuff, like, what the fuck do I do? Like, where do I go? Who do I socialize with? And so I think things like this are so much more important to long-term sobriety, mental health, dealing with PTSD than all of the sort of treatments that people, the medical and prescription and those type of things that people really lean into. That's not a plan for your life.
Yeah. And like you said, that we're a service. We actually provide a service.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so not to talk ill of other nonprofits, but some of the veterans I work with have been like, they've talked about a certain one called Project at the end of it. And they're like, yeah, thanks for the hat, guys. Appreciate it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I've had, listen, like, being a free speech guy and talking about different political issues, I'll have a lot of these situations where, like, if I latch on to an opinion that a specific political party is really trying to push or really get behind, they'll reach out to me and they'll be like, come be a part, like, come do this thing with us and come be a part of this speech in this organization. And then you look in and you go, oh, well, we agree on this one thing, but these other 9 things I am not about. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think humans should have a right to life, but I don't believe in gay conversion therapy. So it's like, I was like, I can't jump on that side with you as well.
Well, and that's what's sad too, is if you agree with one thing and then people see that people that don't agree with that one thing see that you do, then you agree with everything that those people agree. And it's like, no, man, I'm not all the way this way or all the way that way. I think you're all insane on the fringes. You're mad.
Yeah,
I'm in the middle, not even in the middle. I mean, it's so gnarly, man. It's so again, back to it's just such a trauma response. I saw that I was looking back over our conversation in the Instagram Messenger, and there's a woman called Africa Brooke, who's like one of my fucking heroes, and she was part of the like initial woke movement, which in 2014, 2015, it was a thing that I actually took as a compliment. Like I work in adolescent places, mental health and substance use and co-occurring disorders, dual diagnosis, right? Substance use and mental health together.
People who have anxiety and depression and likely you turn to substances to self-medicate. And
Yeah, that's what I did. And then I couldn't stop doing the things until I did. And so at one point, one of the kids, back to 14 or 15, I said something like I said, yeah, I get it. Like I understood something they were talking about, and I heard one of them go, "Sonny's woke," and this is like a 14-year-old kid. And I was like, I have to base my the value of my existence on whether a 14-year-old thinks I'm cool or not. It's like,
well,
what the hell?
you know what I think is funny is like I remember back in 03 when you first joined Head, and I met you first when you guys were touring with Breaking Benjamin, and I knew the Breaking Benjamin guys because they're from Philly, and but it was like you guys, Breaking Benjamin and Saliva, and I remember that people would be like, yeah, Sonny's a hippie because he meditates. And I was just like, that now everybody meditates. I was just like, you were like, in their mind, you were like the most hippie guy in the world because you would like take a minute and chill out, you know, before shows or whatever. And now it's like now if you go to a show, almost everybody probably meditates. You know what I mean?
It's so funny, dude.
But I remember them like, yeah, Sonny. He's like, he's a real hippie, man. And it was like, why? And he's like, oh, he meditates. And I was like, okay.
All right.
Yeah.
That's so great that you mentioned that, man. Thanks for bringing that up. That's so rad because look, bro, you mentioned that's a time when I literally had like a year-ish sober. And that shit is what saved my life on tour. One of the things, that was one of the aspects, one of the actions that I took and still take on in my life every day. And so, bro, check it out. So when I joined Head PE, I had around 10 months sober. I had left. There was one band you didn't mention that I was in called Amen.
Oh yeah. Oh God. How did I forget Amen?
I don't know. It's the one that kind of gets, you know, kind of because we were super pissed and just like, I mean, I got a pentagram over the United States on my arm. You know, we were so pissed off. And some people were like, it's the one they like the least. We were so fucking hardcore.
Yeah.
And so usually people, and so it's not surprising, but I left that band after I got sober. Like I hit bottom and got sober while I was in that band. And then 3 months later, after I toured Australia and I was like in New Zealand with Amen, and I was like, oh my God, I'm free. Like I felt this freedom of the obsession of drugs and alcohol. I was free, but I had to do the work. That's a grace period that I refer to. Like when people hit a bottom or people are like smacked, you call it a moment of clarity, whatever. It's temporary. It's not sustainable unless we do something about it. If we be the real one, if we be a real alcoholic / addict, we have to do work, man. We have to, or we're going to drink again. It's just how it is with people like me. Maybe not everyone, but people like me. So when I realized that band was not conducive to my serenity.
What being Amen or Head?
Amen. Sorry, being an Amen was not conducive to my serenity. So I left the band. I fulfilled my obligations and I left the band. And I went back to work as a vet tech, literally just like, you know, cleaning cages and helping doctors with animals. That's what I did whenever I had to fall back on something. You know, you know what it's like. You know what that shit's like.
Oh yeah, man. I still do it. I'm still like, you know, if somebody's like, the one that comes up a lot is production. If somebody's like, we need a boom operator, you know, for the day, and they're like, it pays $350. I'll be like, yo, I'll go hold a microphone for $350, dude. Like, yeah. It's like, what is it? A porno? No problem. Like, you know, yeah, like it's, you know, it's a grind. Listen, I got buddies that are in bands that have record deals, and they're like, they delivering pizzas on the weekend.
I had a record deal, and I was a major label album and record deal, and I was working in an animal hospital. So when finally 10 months into my sobriety, I got the call from Head PE and I joined the band because Chad left. The other hippie who left.
Which I thought was weird because you replaced Chad in the band, and I go, no, Chad was a hippie. Like I had met Chad and Jared like in 2000. And then what was so weird is, I don't know if I told you this story, but I moved to Long Beach in 2009. It was when I first came to LA, and I had to go to the DMV to get my LA thing. And Chad was just sitting in the thing, like at the DMV. And I was like, I almost didn't recognize it because, you know, it was like 9 years after I had met him.
He was working, or he was just there?
No. He wasn't working at the DMV. Jeez. No, he was probably there to get a license or something. Okay. But his hair was short and it was brown. And when I met him, he had long blonde hair. And I remember being like, he kept looking at me like, where do I know you from? And I was like, I was like, is your name Chad? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, Chad Bennicos? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh my God, dude. Like it was the first time in my life I felt like an old man. You know what I mean? Like spotting. And it was also like, he was just sitting very like, I'm just waiting my turn. And but like wearing like just a t-shirt and like cargo shorts or jeans or something and like short hair, nothing like I remembered him, like wearing the mental patient dress and the
and with the oxygen
the hospital gown. Dude, like he was super punk rock back in the day.
Yeah.
So,
And then he went full on like I'm wearing now mala beads and shit and all fucking hippie, which is great. But when I joined that band, dude, it was they were notorious for partying. And so was I. I mean, I was too.
Yeah.
With them before I was in the band. And so when I joined the band, I was like, I went to Jared when we were going on tour and I said, hey, bro, for people who don't know, generally speaking, the singer will take the back lounge of the tour bus as their bedroom, which for me, I'm pretty low maintenance when it comes to that, man. I'm like, I want to make sure I got coffee and water and like somewhere to like chill. And so, but what I did need from him was some privacy. So I went to him and I said, bro, so check it out, man. So each day, part of my recovery is that I sit and I get quiet for a little while. I read some books. I read some like meditation books, and then I meditate for like 10 to 20 minutes. I was like, you think that, depending on where we are, if I can't find a place to be on my own, you think I could use the back lounge? And he goes, bro, whatever you need, man. He goes, just each day, just like, let me know and just give me like 30 minutes to get ready and get the hell out to go decide what I'm going to do. And then I'll go. And so he was so gracious with me, man. He didn't have to do it. And he was like, yeah, bro. And so each day I would go back there with my little stack of meditation books, and I'd have like a couple AA meditation books. And then there was one called 365 Tao. And then contrary action is something that we talk about in 12-step programs. And that my contrary action was reading a meditation book by a guy called Emmett Fox, which was based in Christianity, really Christian Science, but not he was a scientist who was a Christian, but it was very, very formulaic and very like applicable, right? But I was reading that shit because I wasn't down with any of that. So I was reading, and so I'd go in the back, and
that's the other thing where there's a real gap for some people, and my mom struggled with this for a long time in the sobriety and 12-step processes. If you're not really a theistic person where you are sort of aligned with one particular religion, it can be kind of dicey to like find that sense of higher power and purpose if you're not Christian or if you're not Buddhist.
It's the second most dicey thing to not picking up a drink or a drug. It's the next thing where it's like, fuck that, right? And so I'd be in the back lounge where the bong is right there, and then there's like cigarette butts. And
I'm assuming bottles of Jägermeister
for sure, on ice and room temperature.
Actually, now that I think about it, was that a Jägermeister tour? That one with you and Saliva? I just remembered that. I go, that was the Jägermeister tour.
Yep, Jägermeister presents.
Yeah,
and it was.
By the way, fucking still to this day, one of the best shows I've ever been to.
Okay.
And I was shocked. I remember being shocked at how good Saliva was, because we always joked like, oh, these guys are fucking radio rock, right? Like we sort of like disregarded them like Nickelback at the time. But then I saw them live and I go like, holy shit, dude, these guys are good players.
It's a really good live band. I mean, and they were dirty, man. They were from Tennessee, I think Nashville, or and they were some fucking dirty boys, man. Those were some dirty rock and rollers, you know?
Yeah, they're straight rock and roll,
like dirty rock, like I mean, it was fun. Well, I mean, one of the guitar player, Paul, that was the drummer. One of the guitar players, super cool guy, but it's literally said Dirty South, and I mean, it was real, man. They were fucking dirty too.
real rebel rock guys.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like they weren't posers and and like Mama's Boys or whatever. They were fucking like they were super cool. Go figure.
Yeah.
Oh, what you said, man. I want to say what you said. Thank you for the compliments. Wonderful. Yeah, and what you said about the whole thing about like being, if you're not theistic already. I mean, there's a chapter in the book called "We Agnostics" in the big book that's like, yo, just so you know, us too, right?
Yeah.
And so it addresses that specifically because the main goal, if you will, of the 12-step process is to have what's referred to as a spiritual awakening, which is a shift in consciousness. It's literally, they also refer to it as a psychic change if you just want to be a little less, hippy dippy about it. It's literally it's a change in thinking to where the response to I got a parking ticket or I got a promotion or it's Friday or whatever. The response to that isn't I need to get fucked up. I need to smoke crystal meth. I need to slam heroin. I need to eat some Oxycontin. I need to, snort fentanyl. Like it changes the way we think. So I'm freed today because I do the work. I'm free of that, man. But when I came in, I had just been in a band called Amen. Again, I have a pentagram on my arm.
Yeah.
We had a promo shirt that was a mock turtleneck that had literally a priest collar sewed into it, and it said "fuck your prayers."
Oh wow.
Yeah, dude. I'm telling you, and I grew up in the
Also, I just sound like such a mom woman. Oh wow.
oh,
No. Oh
my
dear.
word.
Yeah.
Dude, on that note,
But
sometimes
see, I love stuff like that because, like, and still to this day, as a comedian, there is this element of like, nah, man, art is supposed to be punk rock and defiant.
You're supposed to go, oh shit, man.
Yeah.
Woo, God damn.
Yeah.
And then be like, okay, right. But I mean, it didn't hurt. It actually didn't hurt anybody. It really didn't hurt anyone. It was like it was really just we were trying to go, fuck, we were trying to do that.
Yeah.
And we didn't go out and hurt. I didn't go hit anybody in the head that was actually wearing a priest collar. We didn't do that shit.
It was really more being defiant of an idea. You were fighting an ideology, or at least what you perceived it as. And I'm so far with like the free speech thing, particularly with art, where I go so far the other way when I go like from sort of like modern wokeism in art, where people go, well, like art doesn't have to be offensive. And I go, I think it has a responsibility to be offensive. I think art has a responsibility. Like, if you think about it, every great piece of art throughout time has been offensive in its time. Like when Michelangelo was sculpted, or Michelangelo did David, it was like that was obscene and offensive in its time, right? And so if you think back to everything, and I always think back to like, I remember D. Schneider, like in Congress, like fighting the parental advisory labels and, and just, yeah, man. And just like trying to fight for the fact that like, yeah, we should be able to go on stage and be offensive and be wild. And, and in a weird way, it's like by exposing people to that extreme, right? It gives people some sort of sense of where the middle really is. And when you remove that extreme of what's offensive and what could be, then the middle slides so far the other way that then there is no balance. And that's what I think we kind of have in mainstream entertainment today, where that's why I asked that question about with there not really being like a rock movement or a punk rock movement or that sort of counterculture. I think as a comedian, I try to do that now, but the less and less that there is of that, the more everything moves the other way. And now where things that we think are pretty benign are now considered obscene,
Dude, I mean, I can't agree with you more. And I hear the truth in that. So it has a responsibility to be offensive. Now, what does that mean to you? Because what people go, oh, the offense means that like this thing that you just said is violence.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's not violence. Violence is violence.
Yeah. Well, and it's like offensive to me is like just something that makes you uncomfortable, right?
Yeah,
if you grew up like a sheltered white kid, then by definition, being around another culture, like a different race or a different religion or whatever, could be offensive. It could be so taboo and strange.
Right.
But the way that we create that balance is by pushing people so far into their discomfort that then they become a little bit more understanding of the world around them. And that's why I feel like when people go, oh, like, oh, you'll just joke about race or sexuality or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's how we normalize everything. That's how we bring people together, is like and that's how you tear down what makes people uncomfortable. I remember bringing people to like hardcore shows back in the day, and they went from like, like, oh dear, to like in the middle of the pit halfway through the show. And it's like that to me was the ultimate thing of like, helping people understand that this thing that you're uncomfortable with or whatever can really like open your eyes to a more complete, well-rounded life.
Yeah, and the discomfort is I think what you just said is it's just it's a misunderstanding. And to be to judge something that is offensive as being because it's offensive, therefore it is going to cause others to be violent toward the people that you were making a joke about, even if it's yourself,
right?
Or whomever. Dave Chappelle makes fun of everybody Black
Yeah.
people, white people, people, you know, everything, right? And but it doesn't mean that it's causing violence. That it's gonna like, are we really that irresponsible? Like we have no personal responsibility. So if that guy says something, I mean, it really goes back. It's just the propagation of like, you know, Black Sabbath or shout at the devil. Like it's
Right.
gonna make our kids worship Satan and all this stuff. How about the band Ghost? Do you know the band Ghost?
Yeah.
I love this band, and it's so funny to me. Like it's because it's fun and funny, and it's like Hail Satan, but it's like not really. It's like it's fun, and Satan's way more fun to party with than God. Than God.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like it's almost like people forgot what sarcasm is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, you know, and what's so interesting is like when you see, I think probably the person who's dealt with this the most from a creative perspective, personal stuff aside, is Marilyn Manson, right? Because of all the imagery and everything he pushed. And I remember back in the 90s, like they tried to blame him for Columbine and then they tried to lump all of like hardcore, you know, and metal music into that place. And it was, I remember that being like, you know, there were like parents in school PTA meetings, like we can't let kids listen to this music. And I was just like, dude, this is the modern day equivalent of burning books. And I feel the same way about when people are like, we can't let comedians joke about these things. It's like, no, we're burning books again, guys.
How about this, bro? Again, like you said, like I am not condoning or backing Marilyn Manson's personal.
Right. I was saying that aside, just as an artist. Yeah.
Notwithstanding that as well, for me, when
Yeah.
I saw Bowling for Columbine, the movie Michael Moore did, right, and he interviewed that dude. He went to Brian Warner and said, "Hey, what would you say to these kids who went in and killed all those people in Columbine?" And his answer was something to the effect of, "I wouldn't say a goddamn thing. I would listen to them." And I
Yeah.
went, oh, and so that actually, I mean, again, that dude, he's twisted. He got, you know, Antichrist superstar, and what a shock that he's a creep. But that message, that philosophy of listening to someone who's so fucking troubled is lost. That's why we can't shut people down like that. That's why by no means am I like, yay, Trump, but I'm like, well, at least he got people talking and we got to see who's who. But then it's gone to this crazy place.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love is that people go, you know, people are like, oh, are you a Trump supporter? I go, listen, do I think he's the best guy? He was the best guy for the job? Absolutely not, right? But do I like what he represented, which was a complete disruption of the way American politics works? I love that idea. Like, I love the idea that at any moment, like it did restore my faith in the concept of America, because I go, at any moment, the American people could get together and just go, nope, we're going to do something different. And that to me gave hope that like, oh, wow, like it actually still really works. Like we actually still can get together and do something that is like out of character, right? Like I always say the worst thing you can lose as a human being is the belief that people can still surprise you. And it's so hard in life today. Like I talk to people who have trouble with like dating, and I talk to friends who have trouble with their career, and you know, like people who feel like, man, I go to these jobs and I expect the worst and the worst happens. And I really don't get that far into like positive manifestation or that type of thing, because I feel like I'm a little too grounded in, you know, reality. And maybe that's just pessimistic on my part. But I do tell people, like, you can never lose hope in the potential of human beings. Like, you can never lose hope that somebody, the right person someday might surprise you in the best way. And I've seen that enough to have not lost faith in it myself.
That's rad. Back to the burning book thing that you were talking about. I remember when Neil Young was so brave to pull his music
about with the
off of
Rogan
Spotify
thing?
because of Joe. He was so, guess what he did? Guess what he didn't own? Any of the songs that anyone gives a shit about.
Right.
He sold them for $150 million like years ago.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and I mean, I'm just gonna go on record. I never really cared for Neil Young in the first place. Fuck that guy. I'm with that. I'm with Leonard Skinner. The Southern man don't need him around anyhow.
Oh, dude, how good did you watch that like 4-hour Leonard Skinner documentary?
Yeah, it made me sad a lot, but yes, I did. Amazing.
It is sad, but
Yeah.
like you know, they were before my time, but like my mom grew up in Michigan, like northern Michigan, so like very rural. That it's pretty much the deep South, rural Michigan. But she grew up like a huge Leonard Skinner fan, and I I was like, oh my God, I didn't know what virtuosos their musicians were. Like I went back, and so then I went back and just started listening to all of the Leonard Skinner stuff, because I was just like, oh my God, like that young guitar player was like, it's amazing when you look at the talent level at like 18 years old. This kid was maybe one of the greatest guitarists to ever live.
Dude, those rednecks could play, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some power chords and shit. I can jam.
Yeah.
Those boys, I mean, woo.
Well,
So
that's what's amazing is like I just started playing again. Like in the pandemic, I think I told you, like I rebuilt an old guitar that it was the first guitar I was given when I was 7, and I've had it and traveled with it all these years, and then I
Whoa.
restored it and
What is
rebuilt
it?
it. It's a 1972 or 75 Penco Les Paul. So Penco was Ibanez's American brand, and and basically they were like, we're going to make lawsuit guitar. We're going to copy everybody else's guitars and sell them under this label. And if we get sued, we'll just nuke that company and still have Ibanez. So that's what they did. And so this Penco is like a legit 72, like full mahogany, a heavy battleship of a guitar, heavy. But it's like the quality is through. I mean, like if I showed you this thing and it's 50 years old, you'd be like, holy shit.
Wow, man.
And I put EMGs in it and restored all the hardware and like redid the frets and everything all myself, and put like LSR locking tuners, like the old 80s like shredder tuners in it.
What's
And
the bridge? Do you have a tremolo?
I don't have a tremolo, but I have like I think it's a Wilkinson tailpiece that has the fine tuners.
Okay.
So
You
it's
need
like
the fine tuners if you're gonna lock the nut. Yeah.
Well, so there's no locking nut, but the locking tuners. But the fine tuners, I just like.
I got you. I thought you said nut. Right.
No. But I have like, so it's almost like they're like the fine tuners of a Floyd, but on a stop tailpiece, which I just thought looked badass when I started restoring this thing back in 2008, and then I put it away and never finished it. So I finished it during the pandemic. I started playing again, and then I just bought a PRS 7-string and started playing that. But when I had Misha from Periphery on, I was like, oh, I like Periphery. I'm going to try to learn some of their stuff. And I literally pulled up the tabs and I was like, yeah, this is why I quit playing guitar in the first place. Because I was like, there is a limit to my capability, man. Like I started looking at this
really hard when you said that. I would just blink like real hard thinking about Periphery riffs.
Oh my God. I was just looking at this. I was just like, yo, you got to be autistic to like write this stuff. There's no fucking way that my normal dumb guy brain would ever look at an instrument and be like, yeah, this, you know what I mean? Like it's just so, and it's incredible. It's like, it's layered, and it's got all this technical capability, but it took me back to that place as a musician where I felt like I hit a wall creatively. And that was when I pivoted into comedy, and I was like, oh no, this is my instrument. Making people laugh is definitely my instrument. Like I enjoy guitar, but my even I always tell the story when people go, how did you go from music to comedy? I was like, my band broke up. And then all my buddies that I played music with that were in other bands were like, dude, you should be a comedian because you're way funnier than you are talented as a guitar player. And I was like, touche.
Fair enough. And then you're like, all right, let me get this started.
Yeah. And then the other thing I loved was like, oh shit, there's no hauling gear, or like, having to run out an hour before the show to the local music shop to buy drum heads because we bashed one, in rehearsal, and oh no, like we didn't bring cables, just stuff like all of those early band things that are just like nightmares.
There's no overhead.
Yeah, it's just like, here's your microphone, go out and tell sillies. And I was like, oh, nice.
Mic. Yeah, here you go. Yep.
Yeah, there's no tunings. Like, what tuning is this in?
Oh, dude, hey, I wanted to mention this because I haven't been able to watch it yet, but there's a Norm Macdonald documentary. Yeah,
I watched it, the new special.
All I saw was last night. I was like winding down or something, and I was checking some shit out or whatever, and I saw like the preview for it, and Norm Macdonald said something that I hadn't. Of course, he went the next step further than I, because I realized recently like how much I see comedians as a necessity. There was in feudal times, there was one person in the entire kingdom who could insult the king or the queen. That was the court jester, and they needed it and they wanted it.
Yeah.
It was necessary to talk about how fat the king's ass was. And the king's like, ha, ha, ha. And everyone else is like, oh God, can we laugh, right? It's so necessary. And so I started recently going, oh my God, man, like, these guys, some of these guys are are like philosophers of our time. And I was just,
Yeah.
and I kind of just stopped there. And then the preview of Norm Macdonald is like, he's like, yeah, people think of like comedians as philosophers, which makes me feel really bad for actual philosophers.
Yeah, but he's like, there are modern day philosophers, He's like, they're just like, oh man, I guess I got to get out of the way for this comedian.
Yeah, guess I'm gonna reinvent myself again, right? But
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
seriously, but back to like who I used to I thought I was like original. I thought back at some point, maybe I had an original thought or something, but I thought Mark Twain was the original stand-up comic. I was a big Mark Twain fan back in high school and shit, and there was like an essay I did on him in the one semester I took of college in Northern Virginia, and he was like really, he would talk about the zeitgeist, right? He talked about the being on the river and all this other stuff, but then his wife and his daughter, his wife and one of his daughters died, and then his other daughter was mentally ill, and this dude had to go and tour and do like speaking engagements where it just involved him going to Europe and going to these places and walking around on stage and talking shit on politicians and about the education. Like his favorite topic was talking shit on politicians.
yeah.
His favorite thing. And then so that was like and he just walked around on stage. So he like set a standard for this type of thing, and it's so vital to our society to be aware. Oh, even Chappelle, who when he was getting the Mark Twain Award from the Kennedy Honors for humor, the Mark Twain Award for humor, he said that his mom used to tell him as a kid that he should be a griot, which was an ancient African tribal sort of, not a medicine man, but like the one who would record the history of the tribe and the happenings and tell the stories, the oral tradition. And she's like, you should be a griot. And he is. And so are you. You guys, like, that's what it is. We need that, man.
Yeah, I think it's I think that's what I think art's purpose is. Aside, when I say it's a responsibility to be offensive, I think its purpose is contemplation, right? It's to compel people to stop the this of their lives and sort of turn it to this. And like, you said something really powerful earlier where you like, I made it a point, and I think you were one of the first people I ever heard about it, the concept of practicing gratitude. But when you talked about stepping to the side of the stage and looking at it all and taking it in, and I just think, musicians and comedians, that when people talk about like, well, we have a responsibility with our platforms to do good in the world, the best you can do is to get people to do that, to step to the side of the stage and take it all in. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it or feel good about it or feel bad about it, I always say this, I'm never trying to tell people what to think. I'm always trying to get people to contemplate how they think and to look at the world around them and go like, oh, why do I hate people that think this? Or why am I so quick to judge people who do this? And it's like, I'm not telling you what's right or wrong. I'm trying to get you to look inside yourself and think about that. Right. And whatever you come up with is what you come up with. I have no control over that. Again, people have personal responsibility for who they are in the world. But I think that's the best we can hope to do as artists or comedians or filmmakers or writers, is to get people to kind of stop within themselves. I'll use your analogy, step to the side of the stage and just take it all in.
Like, I'm still on the stage. I'm still one of the, like Shakespeare said, I'm still a player.
Yeah.
Literally and metaphorically, but I'm just going, right? But I'm just going, wow. And then look at who's looking and like, oh, wow. And like you said too, the how do I think? Like, how do I think about stuff? And like, I mean, for me, it's very helpful. I do therapy. I've been sober 20 years and I don't have it all figured out. That's probably the thing too, is like the danger of the absolution, the absolute, this is how it is.
Man, that's such a powerful way to phrase it too. The danger of absolution. Be a great name for a record, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Let's write that shit. I'll get a 7 string.
I know, man. Let me bust my chops up a little. Well, it's funny though, because like I never really played sevens. Like I have small hands, so like
I've never played a 7 string. Never to this day. I've never played a 7 string guitar.
Really? Yeah. So it's funny. Like I had Misha on the podcast, and then I bought one of his bandmates' signature guitars, Mark, and he's like, "Dude, what the fuck?" Misha was like, "Dude," but anyway,
he has one too?
Yeah, because he has a deal with Jackson, but Mark's is like the most narrow at the nut of every 7-string made. So I was like, all right, well that'll be a good transitional to like play around with that. And
for those who don't know, the nut is the part of the guitar where the strings come up to the top and there's a little thing right there, and then there's the headstock. So
Yeah.
if you feel offended by being referred to as narrow in the nut, it's okay. We're talking about guitars.
It's actually a good thing for guys like me, right?
It's actually good to be narrow in the nut.
Yeah.
Don't be fat in the nut.
Fat in the nut is the worst thing I could possibly be faced with.
I got a 59 reissues Les Paul sitting right there. It's so fat in the nut. I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. I love that about you.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so I started playing the 7, and then I actually was like, oh wow, this actually feels more natural. To like this 7, just the reach of it and everything. I was like, yeah, this actually feels like a more natural fit for me as a player. And then I picked the Les Paul back up, and I was like, oh, this is like a banjo now. Like going from a 7 back down to a 6, I'm like flying on that thing. So I was like, honestly, I was like, every guitar player should have a 7-string just to work out. And then when you go back to your 6, you feel like you're playing a toy.
Go there for exercise. It's like walking around with like leg weights or ankle weight.
It really is like, you know, and then I was like, maybe an 8-string. And I was like, no, let's not be ridiculous. You want to talk about fat in the nut.
Yeah. Who plays with an 8-string? There's a band I saw.
Animals as Leaders.
I was gonna say my dude. Yeah. My dude, Javier Reyes. What a great guy, man. I do. Yeah. He's a homie.
Dude, I met Javier Uber driving like 7 years ago. And this is so fun. I got to have Javier on the show because I Uber driving and he was talking about playing. And I think he had a date with him. And he was talking about playing. He's like, yeah, we got shows coming up. And he goes, I was talking with Tosin. And I was like, there's only one Tosin in all of music. And I was like, wait, are you Javier from Animals as Leaders? And he was like, yeah. But he was also like, I never get recognized. And he was like, yeah. I was like, oh, dude, you guys awesome. And I also told him, I was like, I'm a comedian now, but I always said if I ever had like a late night show, I would want Animals as my house band because it would just be so fucking weird and awesome. And he was like, dude, that would be great. We would definitely do something like that. But also, like at the end of the thing, he was like, "Hey, man, thanks." And I think I made it look like a badass to his date by recognizing him and being like, "Dude, you guys are the fucking best band." Like
he was like, "Fucking thanks, bro."
Yeah. Of course, I was just like, "That's got to be like I haven't been single for a long time, but I could imagine like being on a date and somebody recognizing me. I'm like, that's pretty shit." You know, the woman almost feel like, "Did you plan this?"
Yeah. Did you order this? Is this a real Uber? Is this your friend?
Yeah, is this your buddy from next door or something? Yeah, but yeah, it was just so. And I also met Mikey. I had never met Mikey Doling, back in the day in bands, and like we all live in the same neighborhood. Well, did at the time. I don't know where everybody lives now, but we're all like North Hollywood, Studio City, Burbank, that area. And I remember I picked Mikey up one night too, and I was like, "You're Mikey Doling." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "How do you know me?" You know, and it's like I was like, "Oh, it's a long story." Like you just go back. It's like I've never met you, but I know 10 of your friends. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's like, "This could be an interesting story. How do you know of me?" Yeah. Javier. Yeah. Animals as Leaders. I think he plays at times an 8-string. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. When he plays. He exclusively plays 8 strings.
Okay. I'm like, how many fucking strings do you have, and what are you doing, bro?
Yeah, it's wild. But honestly, like when you see these guys hold those instruments, it's like it's not even a guitar; it's something else. It's like becomes its own thing. And there's so much stuff with like thumb picking and hand slapping and like flamenco type stuff. And
there's that thing that happened where the dudes started the natural progression is like pushing the boundaries, right? Go, comedy, music, whatever. Push the boundary, art, right? There it is. Offend, be pushy. And these guys that do these insane riffs that have like super low and then really high. Like, you ever heard the band Sleep Token?
No.
I really like them. It's very what is it? It's about the singer but there, and I love his voice, and it's super sad and all this beautiful stuff. But it's but these guys have actually kept it more real than even like Slipknot did. Like Slipknot finally was like, we can't fuck around with these masks. We got to just be out. No, these guys are still secretive. Sleep Token, they've been around for like 5 or 6 years, and these people still have no idea who they are. But this the guitar player plays like 7 or something, just where it's a low, like the string is so low it's a fucking H. The note is 8. Like how low can you go?
Oh yeah, it's like full octaves down.
Yeah, but they hit the low note and then incorporate some high notes right after it. And it's not a whammy pedal. They're actually hitting high notes on a guitar that has really low notes, right? And it's like my mind goes, whoa, shit. It's almost like one of my boys who I sponsor in AA is a dubstep producer, and like dubstep is electronic metal. It's just really
Tosin said that in an interview one time. He goes, a lot of people don't realize that dubstep like borrow a lot of the same elements from metal, made metal so unique in terms of sound and the sonics of it.
The sawtooth waves and shit. That's distortion, man. That's harmonic distortion. We've been using that shit for decades. But but some of that stuff that makes your mind like go, whoa, because it goes from such a far frequency response in your ear and in your hearing and what the context of the emotion of the song is. So it's like, whoa, it's shocking to me. I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah, have you seen any stuff? Well, hold on. We'll jump out of the regular show here. We'll get into the bonus and we'll talk some music stuff and do some fun Q&A for a short time. But I want to plug one more time before we get out of here. I want to plug Rock to Recovery 5, everybody, July 9th. Get your tickets. Also, awesome venue, the Fonda Theater. I'd say that's probably one of the best 2 venues to see a show at in LA. And it's so much fun, and it's for a good cause, right? And I love that Wes posted a thing like a week ago. It was like people were like, oh, sober concerts are boring, and then he showed like this awesome highlight reel from the last few Rock to Recoveries, and it's like, dude, it's a blast. I plan on going there. I'll be there. Still trying to see if we could fly my mom out for it so she can come, because I was telling you, I was like, she is not what you would expect from like a person who works in recovery and treatment. She has sleeve tattoos, and her favorite band is Five Finger Death Punch, and she is I had the unfortunate reality of converting my mother into a bigger metalhead than me when I played music. So she grew up loving bands like like I said, like Leonard Skinner and Fleetwood Mac, and then she was such a supportive mom when I was growing up, that she was like, oh, I'll get into the music you're playing. And then she stayed way into it, even more so than me. And so she'll be sending me stuff like, have you heard this song from this band? I'm like, I was like, my shit's hard for, what are you doing?
That's so good, dude. Yeah. So the show is July 9, axs.com. And actually, I don't know if it's on there, but there's an early bird ticket price for the next few days. That is all caps RT as in rock 2 RTR 20 OFF. So RTR 20 off, all caps on the letters. And there's actually, if you got to scroll down, if you're on AXS, you got to scroll down and find the little early bird thing to click it. There's like some packages. We have some like meet and greet stuff and whatever that you can also do. But scroll down to the bottom. There we go, buddy.
20 off.
Yeah, and that's 20 OFF. Sometimes the O and the 0 and the O.
Yeah, you can kind of see they're shaped a little different. The O is shaped like you, or the 0 is shaped like you, and the O is shaped like me.
Exactly. That's great.
That's how people could tell.
Yep. Just think of it, me and Josh. I'll be first, and then Josh was right next to me.
Yeah, I'm the wider one. I'm the O. I'm probably more of a double O, if I'm being honest. Post pandemic, I'm looking more like a couple of O's. But yeah, Rock to Recovery in LA, one night only, July 9th. It's going to be an awesome show, and again, a great thing, and keeping you guys going and expanding, which is the cool part. Is going from just people in sobriety to, like you said, mental health, youth, veterans. I mean, it's really amazing, and it's also like rare to find a nonprofit organization that really has such a specific focus, but then also such a wide reach.
Yeah, man. Thanks, dude.
So July 9th. All right, cool. We'll get out of here. We'll get into the bonus show real quick. We'll do some fun memory lane stuff and some fun Q&A for the bonus fans. If you are watching live, which I think in the middle of the day on a Friday, we don't have a ton of live viewers, but if you're watching live, you want to finish watching the full show, you can catch it only at rockfin.com. Full episodes are on rockfin.com. Otherwise, you can get the bonus show, the talking shit that we're about to do with Sonny Mayo, only on Locals. So you can go to joshdenny.locals.com and you can get all that stuff. Again, go to rocktorecovery.org to find out anything about Rock to Recovery. Use promo code EARLYBIRD, RTR 20 off to get your discount tickets. And I think that only goes until maybe Monday, right? So
I think so, yeah. And don't type in early bird, just RTR 20 off.
Just
there.
RTR off. I'm sorry. I should have done that.
It's okay.
But yeah, just
okay.
RTR 20 off. Yeah. Listen, man, I'm producing and hosting, doing all this stuff at the same time. I'm juggling a lot of balls.
Real time.
Right, cool.
He's doing shit in real time, y'all.
I know. Like I'm like that famous clip. Who was it? Where he's like, "Well, we'll do it live."
Oh yeah, we'll just do it live. Yeah, like a newscaster.
Yeah, I can't remember.
We'll get out. Yeah, that's hilarious.
I feel like I should know. Was it Matt Lauer? It was somebody else.
Oh, it's a famous
some right wing. It was a right wing guy, like a Fox guy or something.
Oh, it was fucking O'Reilly.
Bill O'Reilly. Yeah. He's like, "Fuck it, we'll do it live." Yeah.
What a dick.
Oh man, it's wild stuff. All right, cool. We'll get out of here. We'll get into the bonus show.